Well, today we are taking all those things we have made over the last several weeks for our meat and cheese board, and we are attaching them to a cutting board for the dollhouse so that the dolls can put out a nice meat and cheese spread. Stay tuned and see how fun and easy this project is. Alright, after you've got all your meats and cheeses and crackers and whatever else you want to put onto your meat and cheese board created, you need to pick a surface to make your meat and cheese board on. You could use the tray that we made on the channel a couple of months ago. You could use something you've purchased, or you can make a board like I'm going to today. One point I want to make that you be sure of is that whatever you use, you can put into the oven, because we are going to use TLS to put everything down. I'm doing that because now you could use glue, and there are glues that are compatible with polymer clay, and if you've got something that you know is compatible, you could glue everything down. I am going to use TLS mainly because I don't currently have a glue that I really am happy with that holds baked polymer clay really well. I have so much better luck with my TLS, so that's what I'm going to use. Now, I'm using a 2-inch long piece of one of those giant craft sticks from Walmart. The only problem with that is that these tend to warp really easily. You'll end up with it being really bowed along this surface, so it almost looks like a C shape. So if you add feet to it, or little boards on the bottom, it will raise it up off your table surface, and it will also help to keep it straight. And what I've cut here is 2 pieces of those slim sticks from Walmart, or from Hobby Lobby, each about 1 inch long. You could use skinny sticks, you could use regular craft sticks, whatever you've got. And then I had to figure out, how am I going to fasten this on with something that won't be affected by the heat of the oven. I decided to use my TLS. I'm already using my TLS for other things, and the TLS will glue this down too, just like it glues our polymer clay together. It won't hurt the wood, and it won't be harmed by putting it into the oven all the times we're going to be doing that today. Some glues, now number one, when I have an object that is glued together and I can't get the glue to release, one of my ways of fixing that, of getting glue to let go, is to put it in a low oven and heat it. I was afraid if I used like a tacky glue or another glue that might be affected by the heat, that I would be fighting with keeping these little pieces on all day. Get them on as straight as you can, as even as you can. They don't have to be perfect. Now that's going to go over on my baking tray, and I'll bake it with the first batch of stuff we bake. Let me get set up for our next item we're going to put together. Alright, next we're going to put the pickles we made last week into this little bowl we made last week. I'm going to start by putting just a little bit of TLS in the bottom. And I've got a piece of uncooked spaghetti. Save your favorite pickles for the top. And if you've got good sides and bad sides on some of these, make sure you put the ones that look, the side that looks the best on top. And I'm just going to arrange these so they look like they were just dropped into the bowl. And the other side of that one. And I'm just going to keep adding pickles. I won't make you watch me put every one because this is going to take me a while. There will be a picture on the blog post of how this looks before I put it in the oven, along with how everything looks before each stage. So I'm going to continue adding pickles, and when I get this filled, I'll come back with the next item. All right, I have my little bead cap and my black olives, and I have more black olives over here. I was just starting out with some there. And once again, I mean, this is going to basically be the same step for each of these, and I'll only show one batch of olives. I won't make you sit through all of them. Put a little TLS in there, and I've got more TLS off to the side of my tray that I can use a toothpick to apply if I need to later in this process. Start by just putting in some olives. Make sure that this bowl especially is sitting on top of a piece of parchment or some other surface that it won't stick to, in case, because there's a hole in the bottom. So you want to make sure that it doesn't stick to the baking surface. So I wouldn't want to stick this directly onto my paper plate. So I'm going to add a couple more, add a little more height here, then I'll do the green olives, and then I'll come back and we'll look at the next thing. All right, now I'm going to work on the meat slices. I'll show you the ham, and then I'm going to do the salami and the turkey off camera, so you don't have to see the same process over and over and over. I've got my slices of ham here that are all baked. And what I'm going to do is something similar to what I did for earlier, just to see how this was going to look laid out. So I've got my slices of ham. I'm on my parchment paper on my paper plate that I'm going to bake on. That's important because you don't want these to shift when you try to move these. So I've got some, I've got a toothpick, and I've got some TLS over here. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to put a little bit of TLS here, and then pick up one of these. If it will pick up, it's not going to. That one will pick up. Or if it won't, just use your fingers. And then overlap them the amount that you want them to be overlapped. Add a little more TLS. And however many slices you want, and the line of them however you want it to look on your tray. If you want it to be really stacked tight or whatever, you're going to have to decide that for your tray. So I'm going to get all the meat slices done, and then I'm going to bake this at about 250 degrees for 10 minutes. Then I can kind of play with these and see how I want to do the cheese and crackers. So I'll be back when these are baked. All right, everything is baked and cooled, and you can see that worked just like glue would. It held that on nicely. So now I'm going to, I think, start arranging these pieces on my board. I probably won't glue them down yet. Won't fasten them down with the TLS yet, but I want to get an idea of how much room I'm using up. So I know I'm going to put those there and those there. Probably the olives in the front corner. And I'm going to kind of play around with this a little bit. Now these are fragile. Until we get them fastened down to the board, they are going to be very, very fragile. So we're using up, that looks pretty good to me so far. So now I'm going to basically do the same thing with the cheeses. I have the white cheese and the yellow cheese. I'm going to go ahead and put these out in kind of a fan again, just like I did those. And when I get those baked and cooled, then I'll come back and we'll start assembling this on the board, kind of arranging, and we'll kind of talk about how that works. So let me get these glued just like I did the meats. All right, now I have all these pieces baked and cooled, so I'm going to move them off to the side. I'm going to bring in my paper plate with my parchment on it again, because I want to always work on top of parchment paper. Not as important on this step because it's not going to touch, but anytime you might touch the paper plate or touch the baking surface with the liquid Sculpey, you want to make sure that you are on parchment or something else non-stick. Now I am going to actually just put a drop of TLS right here on my board, because I already know the 3 corners are going to be my bowls. I know that. I've already decided that. So I am going to, and I think I'll put the black olives over here. And it's okay if the TLS is kind of out there a little bit, because we're going to cover most of the board with the food. So I know those are where I want them. So now I have all these other pieces. I have the cheeses and the meats. I'm not dealing with the crackers yet. I'll deal with the crackers here in a little bit. I am going to get a wedge of this one, and I'm going to get this and this. So now we need to figure out where some of these other pieces are going, and I may or may not put all of them down at one time. I know I want to put, see, I think I want that there. That's the salami, and I'm going to put the cut salami right in front of the piece of salami. So I'm going to put some TLS out on my work tray, because it'll be a little easier to work with a toothpick and just get this in, and then I'll drop it, scoot it over exactly where I want it. I'm actually going to dip the bottom of that into the TLS, and I'm going to put that right up against my salami. That way it looks like we just sliced it and put it there. I'm not going to glue everything down in one step. I think I want my cheese. So I've got a little TLS that's right there. I want my cheese right there, I think. And then let's see how this looks. If I put this, kind of put this on here and just scoot it up, do I like that? Yeah, I think I like that. So dip it in there. You can dip it in the TLS, or you can spread the TLS on the bottom, whatever works better for that particular piece. I want this. Let's move this just a little bit more over. Once we bake it, we won't be able to move it, but up until we bake it, we can move it around. And I'm going to put that right there. And I think I'm already out of TLS over there. This time I'm going to put the TLS directly on the board. And I'll go back and forth between putting it directly on the board, putting it on with a toothpick. It's just what I feel like at that point, and what just feels like how much TLS I'm going to need for that particular item. Let's see, I've got the turkey yet. I think I'll put the turkey right in there. And I have a variety of tools here on my table. I have a toothpick, I have my piece of raw spaghetti, I have my pointy tool, aka my dental pick, that I use when I'm working with clay. I have all those things here to help me scooch this around and get everything right where I want it. I think my brie will look good sitting right there. This time I'm going to use the toothpick to put the TLS right here. And I'll drop it. Because, you know, it wouldn't be my video if I didn't drop at least 2 or 3 things during the course of making the video. Sometimes I cut all of them out. Sometimes I show you that I'm a Butterfingers and I drop things. I think because I don't want to move any of those items, I'm going to give this a quick bake at, making sure that my bowls are sitting right where I want them. I'm going to bake this for 10 minutes at 250. And I want to explain the 250. I've been baking at 250 lately because my oven, I've noticed, doesn't stay at temperature. I keep a thermometer in it. And in watching my thermometer lately, when I bake at 275, my oven seems to fluctuate a lot and it goes above what I consider a safe zone. I don't want my oven to go over 300, even close to 300 when I'm baking clay. At 250, it inches up, it kind of creeps up to 275 and then back again. If I put it at 275, it goes up to 3 or maybe 325 from time to time. So at 250, I feel safer baking the clay and it's not going to give off fumes from being overheated. That's why I have switched to a 250 degree baking temperature. If you trust your oven, go ahead and do 275. Anyway, I'm going to bake this at 250 for about 10 minutes. I think I want to get this well adhered, and then when it cools again, I'll come back and we'll put a few more pieces on. Be right back. All right, those are baked and cool, so now I've got a few more pieces of cheese I want to put on, and then I'll be baking again. I find it's so much better to work with just a little bit of stuff at a time rather than trying to work with a lot, because you're just going to knock it loose. Now I kind of played around a little bit with this off camera and decided I want this piece of cheese to snuggle up right next to that salami, and then I want the slices of it right in front of it. Come on. And I think I'm going to put this wedge of cheese right here. And like I said earlier, I'll go back and forth how I place the TLS on, just based on what I think is going to work best for that particular item and what I'm in the mood to do right at that second. And I think I'm going to do this piece of blue cheese probably right over here next to the ham. And then all we'll have left will be the crackers after we bake this off. We'll go ahead and stack some crackers and get those ready to go on. So I'm going to bake this and I'll be right back. Alright, so we've got this part all baked, and now I'm going to add the crackers. And I decided not to add these. I made them, but I'm not as happy with them. And I think they'll go in a different scene better than in this one. So now I'm going to add crackers. So I'm going to go ahead and put out some of my TLS over here. And for these, I think I'm going to build them into the shape I want them in place. And I won't make you, again, I'm not going to make you watch me do the whole thing because this is going to take me a while. So I got some TLS in place. Build this. Now it won't pick that up because it's just a little bit too heavy, of course. I'm going to place them kind of in place, and then I can use my pointy tool to kind of refine where it's at, make sure everybody is right where I want them. And if you choose to do this with glue instead of TLS, make sure that your glue dries between batches, just like I have baked off mine in between pieces. You'll want to make sure that your glue has time to dry. So I'm going to put the rest of some more of these crackers here, some of the round ones in the back, and then I'll check in with you before I put it in the oven. I'll be right back. All right, I have everything in place. I'm going to bake this at 250 again for another 10 minutes. And then when it's cooled, I'm going to put a little bit of gloss over my pickles and my olives again, just because I think they lost a little of their gloss between the time I did them and now. So when this is dry, I'll come back and we'll add just a drop of satin Mod Podge, and then we will be done. All right, these are baked and cooled, and I have some some satin Mod Podge off to the side. I don't remember what I used, if I used matte or satin when I did the olives and the pickles, but I feel like today they need just a little more shine than they have. And also by putting just a touch of Mod Podge on, that will just help just a little more to keep them in place. And they're the only thing that's going to get this. And then once this is dry, these will be ready for display in the dollhouse. And you could add other things to your meat and cheese board. You could add more cheeses, you could add other things, just depending on what you think your dolls want to have. I am going to talk in the blog post about why I didn't put the other crackers on in more detail. So if you want to see that, you can go over there, but I'll come back in just a bit and show you how this looks once it's all dry. All right, the Mod Podge has dried overnight, and I am in love with how this looks. It's perfect. It will make a great display. I hope you make one for your dollhouse. If you do, be sure and share a picture with me. If you enjoyed today's tutorial, be sure and leave a like and leave me a comment. Check the blog post for more insight into why I did some of the things I did here. If you enjoy my content on my channel, be sure and subscribe and hit the notification bell so you know when I put up a new video. And I'll talk to you next time. Bye.